3:17 a.m. The Persian Gulf is in absolute silence until the sky lights up. Strokes of light cut through the darkness at high speed. These are not tests. These are not exercises. These are real missiles. In less than a minute, alarms sound at military bases. Operators receive a short but devastating message. And in that instant, the first hour of a war between the United States and Iran begins. But how does a conflict of this magnitude really begin? And more importantly, who is in control in the first few hours? This is no ordinary confrontation. On one side, the greatest military power on the planet. On the other, a country that has spent decades preparing to withstand exactly this. In the next 24 hours, every decision matters. Every second counts, because modern wars don't begin with soldiers marching. They begin with speed, surprise, and precision. And what you are about to see is not theory. It's a scenario based on real strategies, planned to happen quickly and without warning. The first attack doesn't come from the ground, it comes from the air. Iran launches a coordinated wave of ballistic missiles and drones against American bases in the Middle East. The objective isn't to destroy everything at once. It's something much more strategic, to delay the response. Defense systems immediately spring into action. Interceptions happen in the sky in real time. Some missiles are neutralized, others get past. Explosions light up the desert. Runways are hit, communication systems are impacted, and while all this is happening, another invisible front begins. Cyber attacks. Military networks are strained. Systems try to remain operational. Communications become unstable. Everything happens at the same time, but here's the point that changes everything. This initial attack wasn't meant to win the war. It was meant to create a window of opportunity, a small advantage of time before the response. Because while the world tries to understand what's happening, the next moves are already underway. Minutes later, US Central Command activates a critical protocol. Response authorized, but not immediate. Attacking with full force now could escalate the conflict out of control. So the decision is different. First, observe. Then, act with precision. Meanwhile, American forces begin to move. Aircraft carriers change position. Fighter jets are prepared for takeoff. Submarines are already in strategic locations. In the air, reconnaissance drones monitor every movement. The United States doesn't respond hastily. It responds with information. Every enemy launch is tracked. Every base is identified. Each pattern begins to be analyzed. The counterattack is already being planned. And then, in the early morning hours, the final decision is made. The response will not be symbolic, nor limited. It will be a calculated move to change the course of the war before the first day ends. The first 6 hours make one thing clear. The attack has begun. The impact was real. But the most dangerous part is yet to come, because the next phase is not defense. It's retaliation. So if you want to understand how this war really escalates, subscribe to the channel, because the next segment begins the counterattack. 42 a.m. The sky begins to lighten in the Middle East, but the battlefield never sleeps. And then, without any official announcement, it happens. The first US counterattack doesn't make headlines. There's no press conference, there's no warning, just impact. Long before dawn, strategic bombers were already in the air, flying high enough to be undetected, carrying weaponry designed for a single objective, absolute precision, and in a matter of seconds, the compartments open. Guided munitions begin to fall on critical targets, command centers, long-range radars, launch facilities. The plan isn't to destroy everything. It's something more calculated, to break Iran's coordination. At the same time, at sea, submarines launch cruise missiles. They emerge from nowhere, fly low, and hit with surgical precision. without warning, without time to react. But here's the detail that changes everything. This attack isn't the peak of American force. It's just the beginning, a controlled show of power, a way of saying, we can hit any point at any time. And this transforms the conflict into something psychological. But there's a problem. Iran doesn't rely on easily destructible structures. For years, the country has developed a survival-based strategy, hidden bases in mountains, reinforced underground facilities, mobile launch systems. So even after the initial impacts, the response capability still exists, and this completely changes the scenario. While the attacks continue, another war intensifies. Invisible. The digital war. Military networks are strained. Systems suffer attempted intrusions. Communications become unstable. Satellites are targeted for interference. None of this appears in images. But all of this defines the battlefield. At the same time, American bases enter containment mode. Equipment is redistributed, routes are altered, defenses are reinforced. Because there is one certainty at this moment: the Iranian response is not over yet. And then it comes. Hours after the American counterattack, new waves of missiles are launched by Iran. But now, the pattern changes. It's not just military bases, strategic targets come into play. Energy infrastructure, logistics centers, trade routes. The conflict begins to expand, and with that, the global risk skyrockets. Anti-missile systems operate at their limit. Some attacks are intercepted, others get through. Each impact generates new decisions. Each decision accelerates the conflict. Ships change position. Fighter jets go on high alert. Commands are updated in real time, because now it's no longer just an exchange of attacks. It's a struggle for total control. And between the 10th and 12th hour, a new possibility emerges. No more conventional attacks, but an escalation capable of surpassing any previous limit. The first 12 hours end with a clear scenario. Both sides attacked, both suffered losses, and no one retreated, because what comes next is not just a continuation. It's the point where this war can get completely out of control. Subscribe to the channel, because in the next segment, the level of risk changes completely. To 18 p.m. Half of the first day has passed, and the war no longer follows a predictable plan. What began as calculated attacks is now beginning to transform into something unstable. And for the first time, a real concern arises behind the scenes. This could get out of control. After hours of direct confrontation, Iran changes its approach. No longer just frontal attacks. Now a strategy built over decades comes into play, warfare on multiple fronts. Allied groups in the region go into action almost simultaneously. Attacks emerge from different points, without a clear pattern. Military bases are pressured. Logistics convoys are ambushed. Strategic positions are on constant alert. The objective is not to win quickly. It's something more dangerous, to force the United States to divide, and this completely changes the battlefield, because now there is no longer a single war. There are several happening simultaneously, and none of them can be ignored. But the true risk has not yet fully emerged. For years, Iran has developed ways to target not only military, but systems that underpin the modern world. Sea routes, energy flow, global infrastructure. And there is a critical point that is beginning to be at risk. In the Gulf, movements are becoming more tense. Commercial ships are slowing down, some are changing course, others are simply stopping. The reason is simple: fear. The possibility of blocking one of the most important routes on the planet is beginning to be considered. And if that happens, the impact will not be regional. It will be global. Energy prices are beginning to react. Markets are becoming unstable. Governments are watching every move. All this in less than 18 hours. Meanwhile, the United States leadership faces a critical dilemma: continue with controlled attacks or escalate decisively. Because there is a growing problem. Even after hours of offensive, Iran's infrastructure has not yet been neutralized. And this raises an inevitable question. How far can this war escalate? Air missions intensify. Targets begin to expand. Pressure mounts on all fronts. Defense systems operate at their limit. Every interception consumes resources. Every mistake can be costly. And in the midst of this scenario, decisions are made in seconds. No time for hesitation, because now it's not just about attacking better. It's about not losing total control of the situation. And then, the greatest risk so far emerges. Not a specific attack, but the possibility of something irreversible, other powers becoming involved. Warnings are issued. Diplomatic movements accelerate. Military forces around the world are on high alert, because if this happens, this war ceases to be regional. Between the 12th and 18th hour, everything changes. The conflict fragments, the pressure mounts, and control begins to slip. Because in the next few hours, it will no longer be about strategy. It will be about limits. Subscribe to the channel, because the last segment shows how everything can reach the final critical point. 47 p.m. The first day of war isn't over yet, but the world is already feeling the impact. What began as strategic attacks is now on the verge of something much bigger. And in the next few hours, decisions will define what happens next. After almost 24 hours of confrontation, the scenario is clear. The United States maintains technological superiority. Attacks continue with precision. Strategic targets continue to be hit. But there is an obvious problem. This hasn't ended the war. On the other side, Iran continues to operate. Even under pressure, it still manages to respond. It still launches attacks. It still maintains active capabilities, and this completely changes the initial expectation. Because this conflict will not be quick. And then, the most critical decision so far arises. Escalate with full force, or try to contain it before it's too late. Inside the command centers, the atmosphere changes. More aggressive options are being analyzed. Broader targets are beginning to be considered. But each new decision carries a greater risk, completely losing control. And that is the most delicate point of any modern war. Meanwhile, the global impact intensifies. International markets become highly unstable. Energy prices skyrocket. Trade routes remain under threat. Companies begin to react. Governments issue emergency alerts. Military forces in different regions go on high alert. The conflict is no longer isolated. It begins to affect the entire world. And then a new concern arises, not officially confirmed, but enough to generate global tension. The possible involvement of other powers. Diplomatic movements accelerate. Emergency communications take place behind the scenes. Because if more countries enter this conflict, there will be no turning back. In the last hours of the day, the intensity of the attacks decreases. Not for lack of ability, but for strategic calculation. Both sides begin to assess their next move, to continue or avoid something irreversible. And this pause doesn't mean peace. It means something more dangerous. Decision. The first 24 hours comes to an end with a clear reality. Neither side won, neither retreated, but both provided something extremely worrying. This war could continue, and if it continues, the impact could be global. In just one day, the world saw a rapid and dangerous escalation, coordinated attacks, immediate responses, and a fragile balance between control and chaos. All this in less than 24 hours, and this raises the inevitable question, what happens on the second day? If you want to understand how this war could evolve, subscribe to the channel, because in the next video, we're moving on to day 2, and that's when the scenario could change completely.